Every weekday morning, before most of America has finished its first cup of coffee, a television network with barely a fraction of CNBC's brand recognition is already outperforming it. Not in some small corner of the ratings, across the board. For the first time in nearly 2 decades. And the strange part is, most people watching business news right now couldn't even tell you how this network actually makes its money. They assume it is advertising. They assume more viewers means more profit. They are wrong. The real engine behind this business has almost nothing to do with how many people are watching at any given moment, and everything to do with a quiet financial arrangement that most viewers will never see mentioned on screen. This is the story of how a channel most people can't fully explain became one of the most efficient, most profitable pieces of a media empire worth billions. To understand this business, you first have to understand why it should not have worked. In October of 2007, a new financial news channel launched into a market that was already settled. CNBC had been on the air since 1989. It had 18 years of relationships with cable operators, 18 years of trust with Wall Street executives, 18 years of habit built into the daily routine of traders, investors, and business owners. Launching a competitor into that space was not really a content decision. It was closer to opening a second airline in a city that already had one dominant carrier and hoping enough passengers would eventually switch. Almost nobody expected it to survive on its own merit. And here is the twist that most people miss entirely. It was never really designed to survive on its own merit. It was designed to survive because of something happening behind the cameras, something that has nothing to do with ratings. Before a single advertiser buys a single second of airtime, a cable network has already made its first and often its most important sale. That sale is not to a viewer. It is to the cable and satellite companies themselves. Every time you turn on your television and scroll past a business channel, someone, somewhere, is paying a small monthly fee just for the privilege of that channel existing on the dial in your home. It does not matter if you watch it for 5 hours a day or never watch it at all. The fee gets paid either way. Multiply that tiny number by tens of millions of households, and you start to see the outline of a business model that has almost nothing to do with entertainment and almost everything to do with real estate. You are not really selling programming. You are selling a slot. This is the part that makes cable news one of the strangest businesses in modern media. In one recent quarter, the parent company behind this network reported close to $1.8 billion in what is called affiliate fee revenue, compared to roughly $1.3 billion in advertising revenue across its broader portfolio of channels. Read that again slowly. The stable, boring, almost invisible fee that cable providers pay just to carry the channel was worth more than all the advertising combined. That is not a rounding error. That is the entire foundation of the business, tilted in a direction most casual observers never even consider. Advertising is the part you see. Distribution is the part that actually pays the bills. But distribution fees alone do not explain why this particular network suddenly started winning. For most of its existence, it lived in the shadow of its older, more established rival, consistently pulling in a fraction of the audience, a distant second place in a 2-horse race that barely anyone outside the financial industry was paying attention to. Then something shifted. Slowly at first, and then all at once. By 2025, something happened that had never happened before in this network's entire history. It didn't just compete with its rival, it beat it. Across business day viewership, across market hours, across total day audience, every single measurable category for the first time ever tilted in its favor. Its flagship afternoon program beat its closest competitor by a margin of roughly 70%. Its morning program built a lead of over 30%. Meanwhile, the rival network was heading into its worst prime-time year since 1992, a statistic so specific it almost sounds invented, except it isn't. Why does any of this actually matter financially? Because ratings are not really about ego, they are about leverage. When affiliate fee contracts come up for renewal, and they eventually always do, the network with the stronger audience numbers walks into that negotiation holding a very different hand of cards. Every ratings win becomes ammunition for the next round of fee increases. Every ratings win becomes justification for higher advertising rates. In other words, the audience war and the money war are the same war, just fought on two different fronts, years apart from each other in terms of when the payoff actually lands.
Now here is where the story gets more complicated, because no business this size exists in isolation, and understanding the real economics means understanding what is happening just outside the frame. This network does not stand alone. It shares a building, a newsroom infrastructure, a talent pipeline, and in many cases the exact same advertising sales team as its much larger and far more recognizable sister network, the flagship news channel under the same corporate umbrella. That relationship is not incidental. It is the entire reason the smaller, more niche business news channel can be profitable at a scale that would sink a standalone competitor trying to build the same thing from nothing. When a company already owns the cameras, the studio space, the correspondence, and the sales relationships, adding a second, more specialized channel becomes dramatically cheaper than starting one from zero. This is the hidden subsidy nobody puts in a press release, a smaller channel riding on the infrastructure of a much larger one, borrowing scale it never had to build itself. Zoom out far enough, and the numbers involved stop looking like a single television channel and start looking like an entire industrial operation. The parent company reported more than $16 billion in total revenue across a recent full fiscal year, with the cable programming division alone, the division that houses this business news channel alongside its sister networks, generating billions of dollars in operating profit. That is the real financial world this small, specialized channel actually lives inside. Not a standalone startup fighting for survival, a profitable appendage attached to a much larger, highly efficient machine, contributing its share while quietly benefiting from a scale it did not have to build on its own. So what would it actually cost to buy this business outright, if such a thing were even possible? Here is where honesty matters more than a dramatic number. The parent company has never broken this specific channel out as its own standalone financial entity, which means there is no clean, verified price tag sitting in a filing somewhere waiting to be quoted. Anyone giving you a specific dollar figure for this channel alone is guessing, dressed up to sound like certainty. What analysts actually do instead is build a rough estimate using a multiple of the segment's operating profit, then adjust that number based on two competing forces pulling in opposite directions. On one side, the long, slow decline of traditional cable subscriptions across the entire industry, a trend that has been eating away at the affiliate fee model for over a decade and shows no sign of reversing. On the other side, a genuinely resilient advertising performance with pricing power strong enough to buck the wider industry trend of declining ad revenue at legacy media companies. Put those two forces together, and you get a business that looks financially healthier today than it has in years, sitting on top of a long-term structural risk that nobody in the industry has fully solved yet.
That tension is really the entire story compressed into a single sentence. A channel that just won its biggest ratings victory ever, built on a revenue model that is quietly eroding across the entire industry it belongs to. Success and vulnerability happening at exactly the same time, inside the exact same business. The mistake most people make when they think about a business like this is assuming the product is the news itself. It never was. The product was always access. Access to households, guaranteed by contract, regardless of whether the remote control ever lands on that specific channel number. Advertising is the visible layer, the part you can watch and measure and quote in headlines. Distribution is the invisible skeleton holding the entire structure upright underneath it. Take away the affiliate fees and even a modest audience suddenly looks fragile. keep them intact, and even a modest audience becomes remarkably profitable. So when you ask what it actually means to own a business news channel in this current environment, the honest answer is that you are not really buying a television station. You are buying a contract, a recurring, almost boring, deeply unglamorous stream of payments from companies most viewers have never thought about, layered underneath a much more visible, much more emotional ratings battle that determines how favorable those contracts will be the next time they come up for renewal. The channel that understood this fastest is now sitting at the top of its industry for the first time in its history, and the next chapter of this story will not be decided by who has the better anchors or the sharper interviews. It will be decided by who still controls the pipe the money flows through, long after the cameras stop rolling and the cable box becomes something fewer and fewer households even own.